Okay, chapter 3, where we talk about supply and demand. So this is one of the most useful tools we have in economics. This just tells us how this can help us determine the price of anything. If the price went up or the price went down, the answer to why is in supply and demand. So whether we're talking about a specific product or the product of everything in the whole economy, we use the same tool, so it's really super important to us. So as an example, we're going to use smartwatches, just an example of one product. So what makes up the demand for smartwatches? What determines whether you want a smartwatch, whether you are willing to purchase a smartwatch or not? And so usually we get things like the price, I don't like red, the features of it, the alternative. So whether you're willing to buy an Apple smartwatch depends on other alternatives. Maybe you're fine with a Fitbit, or maybe you really want the watch. Other things you have, like if you already have an Apple phone, so let's say complements, things that go with it. How many apps are available on the phone? How useful is it? Where can I use it? Does it have Wi-Fi or not? So all these types of things determine, for instance, I have an Apple Watch and I love it because I have an Apple phone. But if I had a Samsung phone, then I probably don't want an Apple Watch to go with it because it wouldn't be as useful to me. So usefulness, so all those types of things determine whether you are willing and able to buy a smartwatch. What determines the supply of smartwatches? And so if we look and we say, all right, how many smartwatches is Apple willing to provide? That's really going to be driven by the profit that they can make on that. So we know from the production possibilities frontier, they have limited resources, right? So the more smartwatches they make, the fewer resources they have to make phones or iPads. So they're going to look at the profit, and the profit, again, is the revenue minus the cost, okay? So you might get more revenue from an iPad, for example. This isn't working very well. But it also costs more to make. So the revenue minus the cost is the profit. And so the more profitable a product is, the more you're willing to devote resources to it. And that's really what it comes down to for them. They're not going to make it if nobody's going to buy it, because then they wouldn't make any profit. So, all right, so we're going to look at the demand side first, and then the supply side, and then we're going to put them together. So the market demand is the demand by all consumers. So each individual person has a personal demand curve. I would be willing to pay this much for it, or if the price is this, I'm going to buy more, or if the price goes higher, I'm going to buy less, kind of stuff. So the market demand, or the demand for any person, to be part of the demand for a product, you have to be both willing and able to purchase it. If you're not both of those, you're not part of the demand for a product. So I might be willing to buy a Porsche, but I am not able to buy a Porsche, so therefore I'm not part of the demand for it. So when we talk about demand, we talk about the people that are both willing and able to purchase it, the product. So we look at the data like this, all right? So when we have it in chart form over here, this is called a demand schedule. And when we take that same information and put it on a graph, it's called a demand curve. Even though it's a straight line, it's a curve. That's a math thing, not an economics thing. So we can see a couple different things here. We can see that as the price goes down, okay, well, let's see, I'll go this way. As the price goes up, the quantity that people are willing to purchase goes down. If the price is $250 per watch, then 7 million people are willing and able to purchase it. If the price goes up to $400 per watch, then only 400 people, or 4 million people, are willing and able to purchase it. So these two go in opposite directions. The higher the price, the lower the number of people who are willing and able to purchase it. So when we graph these 5 points over here on the graph, at 450 there were 3 million people. At 400 there were 2 million people. At 350, there were 5 million people, and when we plot each of these points and then connect the dots, and that's our demand curve. And so we see a couple different things here. Well, so we see as the price goes down, here's your zero, all right? So as the price is going down, the quantity demanded is going up. So don't think that it's sloping down like this. Look at what's happening to the quantity. As the price gets as we go farther and farther down the vertical axis, we go farther and farther out the x-axis. So at the lowest quantity, we have the highest. At the lowest price, we have the highest quantity. If the price dropped down to 200, we would go all the way out here, and the quantity would go up even higher. So we're moving out this one. The quantity sold keeps going up and up and up, farther away from zero. This is zero. So as we go out to the right, the quantity is getting higher and higher as the price gets lower and lower. So we see we have this inverse relationship between the two. Price and quantity are going to move in opposite directions. You can memorize that fact. You can also, you're a consumer, right? So you know that the higher the price, the less you're willing to buy. If the price of the watch dropped to $100, I might buy one for everybody in the family. I might purchase even more than I was purchasing before. So as the price goes down, more and more people are willing and able. Maybe at a price of $400, I was willing but not able. But when the price drops down to $250, I am now able to purchase it. So I'm added to the demand, so the quantity goes up that way. So as consumers, we're pretty used to that. As the price goes up, I'm either not willing or not able to purchase that anymore. As the price goes down, I'm more willing and more able. So we see the same information on the chart or on the graph. If you only have 5 data points, it's fairly easy to see this relationship. But when you've got hundreds of data points, it's very hard to read, which is why we put it on a graph. It's a lot easier to see that way. So we depict it on the graph, and it's much easier to see the relationships between the numbers. So as far as definitions, the quantity demanded is defined as the amount that people are willing and able to purchase at a specific price. All right, at a specific price. There's a couple elements of that are important, okay? So the quantity demanded, when we say the demand is the whole thing. The quantity demanded is at a specific price. So at a price of 400, the quantity demanded is 4 million. At a price of 300, the quantity demanded is 6 million, okay? You put them all together, and the demand curve is the whole thing. So when you see just the word demand, that's putting all of them together. When you see the quantity demanded, that is the amount at a specific price. Another thing here is the law of demand. And the law of demand says that as the price goes up, the quantity demanded will go down, and as the price goes down, the quantity demanded will go up. Now, there's a longer definition in your book with real words. I'll let you look at that one. But what this is really saying is that there is an inverse relationship between price and quantity. Quantity demanded. Price and quantity demanded. One goes up, the other one's going down. Okay, that's why we have a downward facing demand curve. So this one slopes down, supply will go the other way. Why does this happen? Well, there's a couple things, and again, as consumers, this sort of makes sense to us. One is the substitution effect, which says if the price of something goes up and your income stays the same, you will substitute a cheaper option. Go for cheaper alternative. So, let's say, so you're going to substitute cheaper alternative. Let's say you were, you like Pop-Tarts, but the price of Pop-Tarts goes up. So you substitute the store brand Pop-Tarts. Now, how quickly that substitution takes place depends on a lot of different things. For me, the price of Pop-Tarts would have to go up really high before I switch to generic ones because generic Pop-Tarts are gross. But maybe you don't think that and you think it's a really easy set. So as soon as the price goes up a little bit, you switch. So you'll switch to another alternative. If the price of movies goes up, well, now let's see, none of us are going to the movies right now. The price of movies goes up, you might just wait till it comes out and stream it on Netflix. If the price of eating out at a restaurant goes up, you might switch to cheaper restaurants. And so if the price of your product goes up, you're the seller now, if the price of your product goes up, some people are going to switch to cheaper alternatives because they are no longer willing and able to purchase that specific thing. So people will switch for a cheaper alternative. Sometimes, you can't switch, let's say it's gas, okay, and the price of gas goes up. You probably don't have a lot of alternatives that you could put in there. So you also have the income effect. And if the price goes up, you simply can't afford to buy as much. So, so the quantity demanded is still going to go down as the price goes up because people aren't going to buy as much. So if the price of gas goes up a lot, and it would have to be kind of dramatic for the most part, but back in like the late 70s, early 80s, the price of gas was astronomically high. Like if you put it in today's dollars, I think it was like up over like $10 a gallon or something. So you simply couldn't afford as much because your income wasn't going up with it. So you had to find ways to do less. And so that's when people really started carpooling and you just ran less trips and all that kind of stuff because you simply couldn't afford the gas. So, or if you have a $100 a month shoe budget, and right now you can buy 3 pairs of shoes a month, but they go up, the price goes up, so now you can only buy 2 pairs of shoes a month. So that's the income effect. Your income stays the same, the price goes up, you simply can't afford as much. So those are the 2 different things we see that cause that inverse relationship between the two. And again, if you think of it as a consumer, those make sense. We deal with that all the time. Even though they'll put big words around it in your book, that's pretty much what we live with. Now, if the price changes, like if we go here and we were started out right here, if the price goes up to $3.50, we would move to this point on the curve. So the quantity demanded would change from 6 to 5. But there are also things that make the entire curve shift. So it's something other than price. That is the important part. If it's price, it's just going to move you to a different point on that same curve. But sometimes there are things that cause the entire curve to shift. It means more people are willing and able to purchase at every price, or less people are willing and able to purchase at every price. So let's turn on our highlighter here. Okay, a shift to the right. Okay, a shift to the right is an increase in demand. That's this one right here. Okay, so that means at every single price point, this is a price point, this is a price point, this is a price point. At every single one, we have a higher quantity demanded. So it's not going up, it's going out to the right. Okay, let's go back to the pen. At every single point, all right, we have a higher quantity demanded. We're going out to the right. This is 0. The farther we go out, the higher it is. So that is a shift to the right. That is an increase in demand. That is an increase in demand. We can also see this. We can also see a shift to the left, which is a decrease in demand. There we go. That's this one, decrease in demand. And so we go over this way. I'm going to go back to the pen, which means at every point, at every price point, we have a lower. We're getting closer to 0. The quantity is going down. Okay, so the best advice I can give you if you're not used to these graphs is do not think this one's going up and this one's going down. They're not. Look at what's happening on the x-axis. This is increasing. It's going out to the right, farther away from 0. These are shifting in towards 0, going to the left, and getting closer to 0. So when we say left and right, we're really talking about what's happening along this horizontal axis here, your x-axis. We're looking at what's happening to the quantity. So that means at every price point, regardless of the price, they're all coming in to the left, closer to zero, or out to the right. Um, I'm pointing, but you can't see me, right? Uh, so we could, so the demand curve shifts, and the quantity is going to change even if the price doesn't change. All right. So I started right here at price one. Let's say it's $300. Okay. So if there's an increase in demand and everything's shifting out to the right, we've got this new demand curve. And so the price is still $300, but now instead of selling 300, I'm selling 500, okay? Or the opposite could happen. So the quantity demanded is changing at every single price point, and that's what's kind of important there. Now let's talk about what can change that. All right. We have 5 factors that influence the market demand. So you sometimes I call them the determinants of demand. Determinants. These are the things that determine the demand. Sometimes you see them called demand shifters or that kind of stuff. Shifters, things that shift the curve. So, so number 1 is income. Okay. What does income do to demand? It depends on the product, all right? If it's a normal good, then as income increases, we see demand increasing or shifting to the right, all right? So it looks like this. Here's the demand curve. Income goes up. We'll call that demand 1. Here's the price. Here's the quantity. Income goes up, which means everybody's got more money, and so as people... that means more people are willing and able to purchase my product. So really you're getting those willing people before, or able. There were people before that might have been willing but weren't able. Now they have more income. So that happens across the board. So demand shifts out to the right like this. However, there are some goods that are called inferior goods, which is not really a testament to their product, but sort of. These are things that you really only purchased because it was your best option, and as soon as you get more money, you want less of it, all right? So as your income goes up, the demand for these products will go down. So here's the price, here's the quantity, here was the demand, and now we're going to shift to the left. The demand will go down. So this could be, for instance, let's say you bought a Kia. The reason you bought the Kia more than likely is because that was the best deal you could get with the money you had. If you hit the Powerball and you won $160 million, you're probably not going to go out and say, okay, now I can buy 3 Kias. You're probably going to get rid of your Kia and get your Tesla or your Porsche or whatever, right? And so you're only buying it because it's the best option with your income, but as soon as your income goes up, you don't want that anymore. You want something better, okay? Different products will be different, normal and inferior for different people. For example, McDonald's. It could be that you eat at McDonald's once a week because that is all you can afford, and as soon as you get a higher income, you don't want to eat at McDonald's anymore at all. You're going to go to Red Lobster, okay, instead, for your once a week out. So as soon as your income goes up, your demand for McDonald's goes down. That means it's an inferior good for you. But there are other people that it could be a normal good. So as soon as your income goes up, you're going to eat at McDonald's 3 times a week instead of once a week. So for you, that is a normal good. And so both of those things can kind of happen at the same time. Okay, number 2, price of related goods. And there's 2 types of related goods, substitutes and complements. So substitutes would be like Coke and Pepsi, okay? If the price of the substitute goes up, all right, let's say I'm Pepsi. If the price of Coke goes up, then the demand for Pepsi will go up because people are going to substitute from Coke to Pepsi, all right? If the price of Coke went down, the demand for Pepsi would probably go down because people would again switch to the cheaper alternative. That's the substitution effect. The other thing we have here is complements, okay? And these are two things that go together. All right, let's say peanut butter and jelly are complements, right? Oh, actually, I'm going to do a different one. I'm going to do hot dogs and hot dog buns, okay? If the price of the complement goes up, if the price of hot dogs goes up, the demand for hot dog buns will go down. If people stop buying hot dogs, and that could be the income effect or whatever coming in there, then they don't need the buns to go with it. So even if you haven't changed the price of yours, you're the hot dog bun maker, you're going to sell less because people aren't buying the hot dogs, so they don't need the hot dog buns. So if it's substitutes, they'll kind of work in the same direction. If it's complements, they'll work in the opposite direction. The third thing that can shift demand, not related to price, but shift the whole thing over, is just taste and preferences. Everybody goes low carb, so the demand for bread goes down, or the demand for pizza goes down if everybody's doing low carb or something like that. So taste and preferences, things, just what's in style, what's not, what people want, what people don't want, and so that's just kind of at the whim of the consumers. But even if you didn't change anything about your product or your price, you could see a decreased sales because it's just no longer, people just don't want it anymore. Number 4, population and demographics. So if there's more people, let's say the population's increasing, then some of those people are going to be willing and able to purchase your product, so the demand will go up. If the population's decreasing, same thing. There's less people available, so the demand would go down. Sometimes the overall population, the number of people isn't changing, but the demographics are changing. So as the population gets older, products that appeal to older people will see an increase in demand. It could be, so demographics could be anything from age, race, ethnicity, all those types of things. So we see the demand for certain products increasing or decreasing as the makeup of the population changes. But again, it's back to kind of the number of people that are willing and able to purchase. If that goes up, either through the overall population or through demographics, then we can see the demand changing as well. And the fifth thing is expected future prices. So future prices, if I expect the price to go up in the future, or that prices or availability, those kind of should go, toilet paper is a great example. So the price of toilet paper was, I don't know, at the beginning of the pandemic, and toilet paper was hard to come by, and as people started to see that and worried about the availability, the demand went way up. People started buying way more toilet paper than they needed at the time because they were afraid they wouldn't be able to get it in the future. And as we see the demand go up, we also saw the prices go up. As you could see, like if you could find some, then it was really expensive. But people will demand more now than they need because they think it's going to be hard to get in the future, or they think the prices are going to go up in the future. So you could see that too. If you think the future price is going to increase, the price is going to go up in the future, then your demand now will increase as you try to get it at the lower price. Or if you think the availability is going to go down, it's not going to be available, then again you would increase your demand now to get it while you still can. So for instance, and the opposite would be true. If you think the price is going to go down, if you think the price is going to go down in the future, then you will decrease your demand now because you want to wait and get it when the price goes down. So let's say you're looking at a new car right now, and you know that in another month the 2021 models will be available. So you say, oh, well, I know the price on this 2020 model is going to drop as soon as the new ones come out, so I'm just going to wait another month and get my car when the price goes down. So you actually kind of decrease the demand now as you're waiting for that price to drop. All right, one more thing I want to show you related to demand, and this is, look, I am going to put big stars up here because this is really important, okay? There is a difference between a change in demand and a change in the quantity demanded, okay? And I guarantee you are going to see this on quizzes and exams. And so it sounds like you're saying the same thing, but you're not. A change in demand, all right? A change in demand is caused, so let's see. Let's do change in the quantity demanded first, all right? Change in the quantity demanded is caused by a change in the price. It is, remember, quantity demanded is linked to one specific price. So if the price changes, the quantity demanded changes. That is a move from A to B, different point on the same curve, okay? So that is a movement along the curve. So you move from one point on the curve to another. That's the A to B right here, okay? A change in demand, on the other hand, is this one. It's a shift of the whole curve. It's caused by a change in one of the 5 determinants, okay? The ones that we just talked about on the previous page. Any of those things happen, the entire curve shifts, which means we have an increase or decrease in demand at all prices. Okay, so the whole curve shifts over here. That's A to C. The whole curve shifts like that. Okay, so it is important to understand the difference. If I say, tell me something that will increase the demand, and you say price, that is wrong. Price would just increase the quantity demanded. It just moves me to a different point on the curve. If I say something that's going to increase the demand, then it needs to be one of those determinants, something that shifts the entire curve, which is not price.